morning. So I want to go over today's assignment. Today we are applying our mastery of figurative language that we reviewed yesterday to our story from Tuesday, The Most Difficult Path. So let's look at our instructions really quickly before we look at anything else. Reread the story, The Difficult Path, paying very careful attention to how the author uses figurative language to paint pictures. You can do this by listening to the YouTube video that I linked for you, or you can do it by rereading the story itself on the Google Docs. You're going to be finding examples of the following types of figurative language, and you're going to write the sentence containing the figurative language with the hyperbole, metaphor, personification, or simile underlined. The first answer is given to you as an example. Each answer gives you a different number of gold coins. Your goal is to collect 10 coins, just like the pirates. Can you do it? So what I mean by collecting 10 coins, if we scroll down to page 2, you will see, other than the example, you get gold coins for each figurative language that you're going to search for. So like finding a simile on page 1 gives you 2 gold coins, a metaphor on page 2 gives you 3, a hyperbole on page 4 will give you 4 gold coins, personification on page 6 will give you 5 gold coins, a simile on page 7 will give you 1 gold coin, a second simile on page 7 will give you 1 gold coin, and personification on page 9 will give you 5 gold coins. So let's say you wanted to just search for the personification on page 9, 5 gold coins, as well as personification on page 6, 5 gold coins. You would only have to find 2 pieces and you would have your 10 coins. Or, for example, let's say you wanted to do 5 gold coins of personification on page 6, and then you wanted to do a hyperbole on page 4, which is 4 gold coins. So I would say 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So now you have 9 coins. You only need 1 more to go. You find that simile on page 7. So 3 pieces of figurative language and you're done. So you want to add your coins up for each part of the chart to equal 10. So it's kind of like see what I mean by the example. So the example says to find 2 similes on page 7. So similes are when you compare 2 things using like or as. So I would go to my story, and then I would go down to page 7, and I would reread that page 7, and I would search for those similes that I see, comparing 2 things using like or as. And you see, as we did this in our example over here. So it says her black silk hair billowed like the sails behind her, and her eyes sparkled like the black coals ready to flame. So our first simile is comparing her black silk hair billowing, so like moving in the wind, like the sails of her ship. So her black hair was like just moving and flowing like the sails of a ship. So they're comparing her black silk hair to the sails of the ship. And then we underlined that because that was one simile. And then the second simile we had was her eyes sparkled like black coals ready to flame. So here they're comparing her eyes sparkling, like, using like or as, to black coals like in a fireplace, ready to flame. So like they're about to spark and start a fire. So these are 2 similes that we were able to find on page 7. You are going to choose 10 others in order to get your 10 coins from down here. So if I'm looking for a simile on page 1, I would go to page 1 in my story and like reread it and search for that simile up here where the author is comparing 2 things using like or as, like in our example. If you choose the metaphor on page 2, which is 3 coins, remember a metaphor is going to be comparing 2 things without using like or as. It's saying something is something else. So you would search on page 2 for that metaphor and then put it over here and underline it. A hyperbole on page 4, if you choose that one, a hyperbole is like an extreme exaggeration. If I say, I'm so hungry I could eat a horse, obviously I'm exaggerating because I could not eat an entire horse no matter how hungry I am. And I would look on page 4, and then I would copy and paste that, and then I would underline where that hyperbole is. If I choose personification on page 6, personification is when we give non-human things human characteristics. So if I say the flowers were dancing in the wind, that is personification because the flowers are not truly dancing in the wind because that's what people do, but it's letting me know as the reader they're moving in the wind very gracefully. So I'll look on page 6 for that. A simile again on page 7 using like or as, another simile on page 7 using like or as, and the personification giving human characteristics. You're going to write your answer from that line. You can copy and paste it right over here and underline where you found it. And then all you need to do is get 10 coins. So just add your coins up. And I'll be on our Google Meet at 11:30.